So another week has rolled by, and are things getting any better out there? Leave a comment in the description box or the comment box below. Are they getting better? Are they staying the same? Or are we going to hell on a hand cart? Well, I've got John Wilson with me again today to discuss some things that have bubbled up to the surface of the cesspit over the last week or so. We're going to be talking about Viktor Orban being a man, being an alpha male, standing up to the EU saying we will not take part in the migration pact, we will not pay any money, while at the same time Harris and Martin are bent over Ursula von der Leyen's desk waiting to accept a gift from her from the rear, and they're simpering and fawning as usual, talking about paying more money, maybe not to take in Mediterranean migrants. We've got videos being made by the Department of Housing, by what looks like two children's TV presenters, confused TV presenters, informing adults how to successfully move back home again with their mothers and fathers, not how to go out there into the big wide world and, spread their wings, how to come back home again and integrate with their parents. All this and more to talk about today. First of all, welcome, John Wilson. How are you doing?
Hi, Rick. On this dark day in Cavan, it's great to be a ray of sunshine in the darkness. Oh, yeah. And I thought I'd heard it all, but I was coming home in the car from Cavan this morning, and I had on one of the mainstream radio stations. Bad. But anyhow, I heard their new meteorologist on the radio. Slimy Harris was giving out the weather forecast. I kid you not. He was giving out the weather forecast on the radio. He was talking about the wind and the rain coming today, which is surprising because today is the 9th day of December in the year of our Lord 2025, and it is winter in Ireland. And I'm stunned that it's raining and windy in Ireland in December. But anyhow, that's it. And can I also say, I want to wish all of your 56,000 subscribers a very, very happy and peaceful Christmas and a wonderful and prosperous new year of 2026. And I want to wish the same to all of the listeners and all of the viewers of this podcast.
Oh, that's nice of you to say that. Well, I hope it's not premature because, we've still got a couple of weeks left before Christmas, and I want to believe I'm going to speak to you at least once or twice before that. But yes, nice to get in a little festive greeting in there, given that they're removing Christmas from just about everything they can, from mince pies, from trees they're selling in Tesco, from Dublin's lights, the winter lights, and so on and so forth. I believe they're trying to erase that. So yeah, why not? And it is, what is it today? It's the 9th, the 9th of December. So a couple of weeks from now, Santa should have arrived, if you believe in him, that is. And Simon Harris on the radio doing the weather forecast. And what is it too with this madness that when there's the trees begin to bend in the wind, or the roads are a little deep, puddles form in the roads, not because of climate change, but because of leaves that the council haven't raked out, and they're full of muck and sludge. And people see this happening and big puddles forming. They think it's the apocalypse. It's not. It's called winter, isn't it?
It's called winter, and it happens every year. And it has for as long as I've been on this beautiful, wonderful planet, as long as I've been on God's earth. And it's scalding. I mean, everything now is to create panic among people. The climate change, the weather, the water rising, the rising temperatures. I mean, we didn't exactly need too much sun cream in Ireland now during last summer.
I don't think I've used sun cream, John, ever. It would have been here, The only time I've ever used a little bit of it would have been in Africa, factor 50, because you're under that Saharan sun right on the equator. You get scorched up if you're not black or brown like I'm not. I tan quite well. However, in here in Ireland, I cannot remember the last time I've needed sun cream, and I can't see it happening anytime soon either. But again, the scaremongering, right? The scaremongering is going on, and some of it is absolute garbage, okay? And you can see it coming a mile away, and anybody that falls for it is crazy. However, there's some things going around at the minute, and it's hard to differentiate between reality and parody, okay? Because now with AI, it's easy to make fake videos and put fake voices on things, and people are very easily taken in. You have to really take it twice. Well, I
Yeah.
want to start off this here. This will maybe make some people laugh. I hope it will, but this is dead serious. I saw this here yesterday. I'd heard about it. It had been written about, but I hadn't actually seen it. So a video, John, has been produced. Now, a video has been produced by the Department of Housing, the Irish Department of Housing. I kid you not. The video has been commissioned, and this girl plus another person are in this video explaining, like children's TV presenters, to grown ass adults how to move back home with your
Oh,
mum and dad again if you can't get a house or you can't pay the rent or you're on Skid Row and you're back home with mum and dad as an adult. They're patronizing you, and probably neither one of them look much older than about 20 years of age anyway. But the video says moving back in with your family after living outside the home can take some getting used to. It's okay to need and ask for support. For resources and advice, see a support guide for young people. Now, before we watch this little video, which is mind blowing, did you ever see or foresee a time in Ireland's history where the government would have to spend money making an instructional video to instruct adults? And I'm not knocking anyone that has to move back home, by the way. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not judging anyone that has to, because many people have no control over their circumstances. It's the fact that the government are producing a patronizing, insulting, dystopian, weird video about it, instead of saying, right, here's how to move out, here's how to, get your first house, here's how to, seek accommodation. They're telling people how to move back home again. Is that not a massive red flag for the way things are going, that they're actually informing adults how to move back home rather than to move out of the home?
Well, I don't find this humorous. I think this is a damning indictment
It is.
on our government, on our treacherous, treasonous government, that they have produced this farcical, it's a farcical video. Basically, it's telling young people how to do everything, bar wipe their backsides. That's
that'll be the next one. That'll be part two.
That's on part two. Young men, young Irish men and young Irish women can't afford rent.
No,
they can't find. They used to be able to find bed sitters years ago, but they're gone now. Now they weren't all they were cracked up to be either, but young Irish men and young Irish women earning decent money cannot find a decent, warm, comfortable place to live in Ireland in the year 2025. That's a damning indictment on our treacherous, treasonous government. How many people that will be listening to this podcast have 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds, and I mean, we can go to any age, 40-year-olds living at home under their respective roofs.
And these are people. These are people, by the way, who are working. They're earning decent money. They've got their own car. They've got maybe a few quid in savings. Yeah. We're not talking about people who are just mooching off mum and dad because they either won't or can't get a job. I'm talking about people that are earning good wages. They're trying to put a few quid away for a deposit, maybe on a house. They're running a car. They're working full time. They're being sensible with their cash. But even with all that, they still can't get their foot on either the housing ladder to buy or to rent in anywhere close by to a big city where they maybe need to go to live and work to earn the money that's needed to buy a house in the first place.
But the inability of young Irish men and young Irish women to find suitable housing is feeding directly into the collapse of our birth rate. Because I mean, it's not unusual to have young men and young Irish men and young Irish women in their 30s earning good money, who cannot afford to pay rent, let alone buy a house or start a family. That's the sad reality in Ireland today, and it's been this way now for the last 2 decades or so. Because Charlie McCreevy, back many years ago, was it over 30 years ago, he brought in what's known as individualization. There was a time when a single income owner, a single income earner mostly the man in the family, could afford to earn enough money to put a roof over his wife and his children.
Yep.
And raise them to have a very comfortable house, a very comfortable home, and to feed and clothe those children and his wife, and they could afford to go on a summer holiday every year as well. Now they weren't, they weren't wealthy on a single wage, but at least they were able to survive and enjoy a very high quality of life. That's gone now. That's gone. Unless somebody wins the lotto today in Ireland or is given an inheritance of an awful lot of money, they can't afford to buy a house. It's really becoming more difficult every week, every month, every year in this country to purchase a house. I mean, an ordinary 3-bedroom bungalow now will cost in the region of between 400,000 and 500,000 euro to build. Who in the name of God can afford that kind of money?
I saw a lady here, was one of those phone-in radio shows where she was being asked about her own situation. And she said, I have 3 sons. I love them all to bits. The eldest 31, the next one's 28, the next one's 21. She said they're all back home at the minute, living with myself and my husband. And from the other side as well, as a parent, she was saying we were looking forward to this stage in our lives where, our kids are grown up, they're all educated, they're all working. We were looking forward to moving into a new phase whereby, we got the house to ourselves and we could come and go a little bit better. That's it. We've been parents for 30 years. We want to just move on. She says, as much as I love my kids, they're all back home with me at the minute. And she said, my husband and I have sat down and decided we do have a big house. We're going to downsize the house. We're going to take 3 lumps of money, and hopefully it'll be enough to provide each one of the kids with enough to pay a deposit to hopefully buy a house, because they can't get the deposit together to buy the house. She says, so we're going to move to a smaller house, which is okay. That's okay. We'll move to a smaller house and we'll take that equity that we free up there that would have went to our kids if we had died as an inheritance anyway. And we're going to try and give them a big enough lump sum to be able to put down a deposit on a house. Now, I don't know what it was like when you bought your first house, but when I bought my first house, all the bank would have looked for was a 5% deposit. That was it. And they would lend you roughly 2 to 3 times your joint income. Okay. And the house prices were infinitely lower than they are at the minute. So you could do it as a 21, 22, 23-year-old. Now, you have to put down a 20% deposit, and they're talking about taking out 30 to 35-year mortgages rather than 25-year mortgages. How are you ever supposed to, A, get on the ladder to begin with, and B, get off the ladder? Because if you're 30 when you take out a mortgage now, you could realistically be 65 before you finish paying it off, if you ever get that far.
I think we're approaching the time when mortgages will transfer from one generation to the next, which is a shocking prospect. Most Irish men and Irish women all they want in life is to be able to enjoy a comfortable standard of living.
Yeah.
There's a new development not too far away from where I'm talking to you from here in Cavan. And the houses are, I think it's in the region of the prices, it's in the region of 450,000 euro. Now, how in the name of God will a young couple be able to afford one of those houses?
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the couple there, the family planning to sell off the house to give their children a decent deposit for a home.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you could pay, let's say, put down a down payment of 80,000 euro. That still leaves them that they'll have to borrow over in excess of 300,000 euro to kit out the house, to finish it off and to make it habitable, fully habitable. And that kind of money, I mean, my God, you're talking about huge repayments every month. I mean, the wages. I mean, the hard-working Irish taxpayers did not gain 1 cent in the last budget here in this country. Not 1 cent. Not 1 cent did the hard-working Irish taxpayers get in the last budget. There was lots of money for Ukraine and for whatever, for the third world and for overseas aid and to save the rainforests and to what else you can add, whatever cause, whatever
Oh, the don't forget the medical fund for AIDS, HIV, and TB
Yeah,
and
yeah, and all, and also,
malaria eradication. Don't
yeah,
forget that.
and also, the Irish government provided money to assist the Ukrainians with their energy
Hmm.
bills during the upcoming winter, when they couldn't give a damn about the hard the Irish taxpayers. They couldn't give a damn about the Irish taxpayers. They're concerned about every other ethnicity on the planet, but they couldn't give a toss about the hardworking Irish taxpayers in this country. I mean, this is, I know we haven't seen any of this award-winning video yet, but it's unbelievable. I mean, to have to stoop to this level, to kind of actually to instruct young people what to do when they move back into their family homes, it is insulting to the young people.
It is, John, and there's a part of me. I believe there's a wicked, malicious element to many members of the Irish government where they take a perverse pleasure out of rubbing people's noses into their predicaments. Simon Harris being the main one in particular. I think he takes a perverse kick out of trolling people. So if he's told that without going into any details, I believe he's a perverted troll. But this video, and I want to play it now, and this is real. This is not AI. This is not a joke. This was produced by the Irish government. It's a minute long to tell an adult how to reintegrate back into the house with their family. And look at who they have. No, I don't know these people personally, and I'm not knocking them, but why they picked them to patronize and instruct grown-ass adults, maybe in their 30s and 40s, with maybe they've come from a bad experience or their lives have fallen apart or they're at their wits' end, to sit down and have these pair telling you how to go back home with mum and dad. I'll play it and you can tell me what you think, all right?
After living out of home can take some time to get used to.
Here are some steps that you can take to make the transition easier for you and your family. Sharing a home with family members as an adult is very different to doing so as a child. During your time apart, you've probably all grown as people and developed different living needs and expectations. Talking openly with your family about everyone's expectations when you first move back home can help prevent any conflict later on. Take the time to set up some house rules, such as paying rent and doing housework.
Communicate with your family. Moving back home might be enjoyable at first, but over time it's possible you might have some conflicts. This is completely normal. If this happens, it's important to discuss the issue with your family as soon as possible and work towards resolving it together.
Help out around the house. It can be easy to revert to your former roles if you move back in with family. However, agreeing to take on some household chores is beneficial for everyone involved. Not only will it lighten the workload for your family, but it will also help you feel more independent and encourage them to see and treat you as an adult.
Know your plan. You may have moved home to save money, or because you're having difficulty finding a place to live. Whatever your reason, it can be helpful to set yourself a goal if you're hoping to move out again. If your situation changes and you need to stay with your family for longer, make sure to discuss it with them.
Take care of yourself. Moving back home can be challenging, especially if you moved because you had to rather than because you wanted to. If you're feeling down about your situation, talking about it with someone you trust can be very helpful. You could speak with a friend, a relative, or a counsellor.
So there you go. That's a survival guide to moving back home. What was your main takeaway from that, John?
I said that was definitely made by the dumb fuck production company. Life can be tough. No shit, Sherlock. I mean,
do your chores. Do your chores, John, so your mum and dad will treat you like an adult.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm kind of stuck for words after watching that gibberish.
That's real. That's real. It's not a wind up. It's real.
Families, I'd say they should do a video on the poor parents. What do the poor parents think?
Yeah.
You know, when little Johnny returns home, now make sure to treat him as an adult and put away the Lego and the electrics and your your little toy train. Put that away because he's a big boy now. He's a big boy now. Oh, Christ almighty. You couldn't
make sure you put your train set back in the cupboard before you go
and
to
your
bed.
Your Scalextrics now. Don't be taking out the Scalextrics. He's moved on from that now. He drinks low alcohol beer now. Oh, holy Jesus Christ almighty. I mean, that's where we're at.
How could you foresee, right, with all the progress And with the Irish government banging on about how economically sound we are, and they have 10 billion surplus in the coffers, and they want to be non-sovereign and part of the EU and forward thinking and expanding and doing this, that, and the other. How can they do that on one hand and then literally produce a video like that? Which I'm sad to say, John, there's a lot of people will be watching this little clip or have seen that little clip, and unfortunately, they're in the position where they're going to have to go back there. It's bad enough because it nobody knows for sure what life will hold. You can be riding high today, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you can get sick. Someone can die. You could get very ill. You could get laid off. You could be made, and all of a sudden, your world will turn upside down. And if your world turns upside down and you have dependents, or even if you're single, or if you've got a wife, or you've got a young family, to have the rug pulled out from under you, right, is devastating, completely devastating. And it's bad enough to have to ask for help from people that you shouldn't really feel that you're asking help from, i.e. your parents, because you're supposed to be grown up and an adult and moved out and be independent. It's bad enough to have to do that in the first place, but to have your nose rubbed in it and to be patronized like this, is that not what I mean? Is that not true? Is this a troll job?
This video is treating young, highly educated, intelligent Irish men and women like imbeciles.
Yeah, yeah.
That's in plain language what this video is doing. It's treating them as idiots. I mean, Christ almighty. I mean, it should be Slimy Harris and Traitor Martin begging for forgiveness and telling the young people, well, we are so sorry that we have screwed up this country so badly that you cannot afford rent, let alone be able to afford a house. And we are so sorry that you have to move back in with your parents. And hopefully it won't be for too long. We will work 24 hours a day, every day, to try and provide affordable accommodation for you and for your siblings and for every other young man and young woman in this country. But sadly, Rick, we are at the stage now where we are no longer talking about young Irish men and young Irish women. We're talking about middle-aged Irish men and middle-aged Irish women.
Yeah.
The number of Irish men and Irish women in their 40s and older that are at their wits' end to try and find accommodation in this country. It is shocking. It is sad. It is an appalling vista. Yeah. Right. This video is insulting. It's treating the cream of our young men and young women as idiots, having to tell them that you're going to have to tread lightly, and you're going to have to
sit around the table and talk to mum and dad about your chores. Yeah, I mean, and if you're feeling too overwhelmed by it, and depressed, go and talk to a friend, talk to a friend, or talk to a counsellor. What's the counsellor going to tell you to do?
This is it's not funny. I mean, some people will regard this video as being humorous. I see nothing humorous in this video. It is a damning indictment on our political establishment, on our treasonous, traitorous political establishment. There was a time not so long ago, I'd say merely in the last, going back as recently as 15, 20 years ago, where young Irish men and young Irish women earning just a basic wage could afford to buy a house.
Yep. A good one too.
Could afford to buy, well, when I say basic, young Irish men and young Irish women earning a reasonable wage could afford to buy a house of their own. But not
and John,
anymore.
maybe also, and this is having to really think back. When you buy your first house, you buy what's called back in the day, you would have bought what was called a starter home. Usually you'd have got your foot on the property ladder, and they called it a ladder because the intention was that once you get onto that ladder, maybe every 3 years, maybe every 4 or 5 years, the property prices would go up. Your wages should go up. The equity builds up in your property, and you say, you know what? We'll throw a few more quid at it. We can sell this house here. We bought it for this. We sold. Now we can move up to maybe a bigger house or maybe into a nicer area. So you move up the property ladder. And then by the time you're in your your 40s, maybe your 50s, when you're at your peak earning potential, you move into what you would call your final home. You could retire into that home, or you could sell that home and buy a bungalow somewhere nice, to finish off your years after you've worked your ass off all your life and you've raised a family. That whole concept now, John, of a property ladder is gone. I would say people are now in the property pit, and they're trying their best to scramble out of the pit of despondency, where they can't get a deposit, they can't get a property, they can't rent a property, and they're back home with their mum and dad at their wits' end. I'd say they're in the property pit right now. I think the property ladder, from what I can see for most people, it's gone.
The main goal, even as recently as 20 years ago, it used to be to buy a house.
Yeah.
The main goal now for many young people, and many not so young people, the main goal now for these people is to be able to find a property to rent, a suitable property to rent. That's it. That's how far we've fallen. I mentioned individualization a while ago. I think I want to just clarify in relation to Charlie McCreevy. He introduced individualization back in the 90s. Where he didn't want kind of husbands taking getting the tax benefits for the wives. I'm just kind of giving a synopsized version of it. He wanted everybody to be taxed as an individualization. And women were told, do not stay at home and raise children. Don't be a slave in the kitchen. Get out and earn your own money. You're as good as your husband, or you're as good as your partner. Get out and earn your own money. And a lot of people fell for this bullshit. And fell for these lies and headed out, and that's what's directly led to the situation where men and women married or living together in a partnership, earning good money, each earning good money, can now not afford to rent a property, let alone to buy a house or to have children. I remember the old days when we talk about stay-at-home mothers, and talking about when a man talks about stay-at-home mothers now. He's regarded as being a misogynist. That's the label that's attached to any man who references the fact that for many, many decades in this country, women stayed at home and raised their families. Now,
it's the greatest, most important job there is. It's the greatest and most important job there is.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that the civil service bar on married women was right. It definitely was not damn right. It was a terrible abuse of women who wanted to remain in the workplace, but once they got married, they had to leave their jobs. That was another Irish scandal that should never be forgotten. And those politicians who enacted that legislation, I know they're now contaminating graveyards all over the country. They should never. That treacherous behaviour should never be forgotten about. Where women were basically told, you can go and get a job in the civil service, but as soon as you get married, as soon as you get married, you're going to have to give up your job in the civil service and go on and stay at home to work. That too was a totally unacceptable situation that many, many women found themselves in. Horrendous situation. All right. But in the Ireland of today, in the Ireland of 2025, the sad reality is that the vast majority of young men and young Irish women starting out in life who should be able to buy a house and to settle down and have families can't afford even to get a property to rent. That's the sad reality that exists today in Ireland.
It is. And the other thing is too, that even if young family or a young couple can start a family now, both incomes are pretty much essential to service any kind of mortgage or any kind of huge rent that's being charged. And there's another catch-22 there, where a lot of families who have small children are putting the kids into childcare so the mum or the dad or both can stay on at work. And the childcare costs pretty much now are almost as much as, if not touching the same level as the wage, for example, of the mother or the father, because either one can do the job, stay at home and do the job if they choose. But either one, you're talking about, you've got two wages coming into the house, but one wage will have to go towards paying a childminder or a childcare facility, so that person can go out and pay effectively to have someone else looking after the kids anyway. That's another squeeze. It's like a vice, John. It's people are being squeezed from every angle, and the ideal situation, which is the one we were describing, I think, that was in place, where you could have a single wage, You could buy a little starter home. You could take a little holiday once a year. You could keep a wee car on the road and, have a pound or two left over at the end of the month for an emergency. Those days are gone.
A lot of children in this country, unfortunately, regard the women working in the daycare centres as being mammy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the reality. True. Because they're dropped off at 7 o'clock in the morning and they're not collected until 7 o'clock in the evening, in many cases. 12 hours a day. And then the poor parents are coming home and they're exhausted from working all day. They're stressed, they're exhausted. In many cases, they get agitated and they're kind of, it's not the quality of life is, there's no quality of life for many of these parents.
No.
Parents have to drop off their children in the morning very early, then head off to work. And very often they have to travel long distances to get to work.
Yeah.
There are many people traveling from Cavan to Dublin every day.
Yeah.
Before they're able to earn the price of a sliced pan, they have to travel from Cavan to Dublin every day, which is an awful distance, and they have to get stuck in traffic and whatever. I mean, it's a nightmare existence that many young parents are living here in this country at the moment.
It is.
They're living a nightmare existence where they can't afford many of these parents are dropping off their children from their rented accommodation because they can't afford to buy a house. And then they have to farm off their children to these nurseries or daycare centres or creches, and then they have to come back, and then they have to worry about the children. Oh, hope Johnny or Mary will be okay today when I'm not there. Then they have to come back. They have to travel all the way back from Dublin and from other locations. They have to collect the children then, and then they all meet up to have a quick dinner. They gulp down a bit of food and they head off to bed because the parents are too exhausted to interact with the children.
And that's not progress, John. That is not progress. And that's, what I'm trying to get my head around. I was thinking about this the other day with regards to healthcare and, getting a doctor's appointment, seeing a GP. With all the so-called advances we've made technologically, with all the so-called advances we've made with, workplace opportunities and this and this and this and this and this, the picture that you're painting there for being a young father or a young mother, trying to raise a young family, getting your foot on a property ladder. And we're not talking about being extravagant here. We're just talking about having a set of keys that you can say, this is my place, and probably will be for as long as I keep the mortgage payments up, which aren't too high, for the next 25 years. And then if you buy a place in your early 20s, you should have it paid off, or you would have had it paid off back in the day by your mid-40s, by 50 at the latest. So you buy at 25, you take out a 25-year mortgage. By 50, you will have a fully paid off, fully home ownership of your own home. I would say for most 50-year-olds these days or 40-year-olds these days, that sounds like a fantasy, or it sounds like a tall story that you might tell someone and they'd say, no way. Did that really used to be like that?
And then we wonder why we're rearing a generation of dysfunctional children.
Mm-hmm.
If mothers and fathers do not interact with their children during their formative years, many of those children will end up in dysfunctionality. They will end up leading dysfunctional lives. I'm not saying every child that's sent to daycare is going to end up as a potential serial killer. Of course, I'm not saying that. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Maybe half of them will.
Right, but an awful lot of children that are farmed off to these creches and daycare centres they're not going to enjoy a healthy adulthood. That's just a fact.
And it's not by choice. We're not judging. I'm not judging any parent. A lot of people find themselves that they simply don't have an option, because if they say, well, okay, I'll quit my job and I'll stay at home and I'll look after kids, whether that be the husband, the wife, or the boyfriend, or the girlfriend, whatever it happens to be, then that income just goes out the window completely. And with regards to renting at the minute too, a lot of families are now going to find themselves, especially in the new year in Ireland, where a lot of landlords are going to be exiting the rental market because of the way that, different rules and regulations are going to be coming in next year to make it, let's just say, less favorable for a landlord having a permanent tenancy. You can't just kick people out. You have to accept their pet. You have to accept this. You have to accept that. A lot of landlords are bailing at the minute. which means that people could be served with a notice to quit. If you're in a monthly rental cycle, you can have to get 4 weeks notice, maybe 8, maybe 12 weeks maximum notice to say, Mr. Wilson, I'm the landlord, I'm selling the house, I'm getting out of the market. So you have until the 1st of February from today. You've got until the 1st of February to pack everything up, get your ass out of there and find a new place. And if you have a job in the area, or your wife or your partner has a job in the area, and you've kids that are in daycare in the area, or maybe grandparents are in the area, and you have to move far away just to find alternative accommodation, the stress is inconceivable.
As I said earlier on, this is a damning indictment on the Irish government, on the Irish political system, and on governments. I'd say the Irish governments for the last 30 years or so. I mean, how come back in the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s, how could the Irish governments back then build thousands of houses, what we now call social housing for people in Dublin and around the country? And they can't afford to do it. They can't afford to do it now. They can't afford to do it today. And then when a hard-working Irish couple, when a hard-working Irish man and a hard-working Irish woman raise enough money for a deposit and attempt to buy a new house, they'll end up going to a viewing, and there'll be 50 Indians in front of them.
That's right.
Who will be given preferential treatment to purchase a property. I mean, when is this utter insanity going to end?
Well, that's the question. When is it going to end? I mean, how much further can this go?
I mean, it's never been as difficult. I don't believe it's never been as difficult, and you could say modern times, for young Irish men and young Irish women to find their feet in this country, and to construct lives for themselves.
And I suppose it answers the question too. A lot of people say, well, why are the young people leaving? Why are the young people emigrating? Why are they all going away? Why don't they just stay in Ireland and work? Because they can't. I don't think anybody really like, even in that video, it said, many people will return home to their parents, not because they want to, but because they have to. Of course, it's because they have to. No, unless it's to look after, unless you're moving back home to look after elderly, infirm, or terminally ill parents. Like, why else would you want to do that? By and large, some people might, but by and large, you won't. You want your own place. You want your own independence. And again, the question need to be asked. We were talking just before we started recording this. Looking at the way things are going. Let's be brutally honest about it. And this whole, like, in the last 12 months since that coalition was brought back into Leinster House again, they don't even have they're setting a housing plan for 5 years now, where they've actually said, we don't have KPIs, we don't have key performance indicators, we will not be put under pressure, we will deliver by 2031, don't you worry about it, but we will not have KPIs, and we will not be held over the fire to this one. Just trust us, we're going to make it right. I mean, there's no, I'm not trying to be a pessimist, I'm trying to be a realist, but it's grim out there, Joe.
This is the government that also introduced new measures to make our roads safer and to stop the carnage on our roads. More people have died on a road so far this year than at the same point in time last year.
Yeah.
I need to say any more than that. We have a government that are operating on a week-to-week basis. I mean, they're not making any, they say that they're making long-term plans, but no. The invasion of Ireland is not by accident. And you reference young people being driven out of the country, having to leave Ireland. I mean, the best of our young, the best of our people are meeting their replacements at Dublin Airport and at the other airports and ferry ports in this country as they are leaving, as they're being forced out of Ireland to make a living for themselves, to establish a life for themselves. It is galling, it is sickening, and there's no sign of this madness abating. The invasion of Ireland is continuing apace. And I know this is not the issue we're discussing, but Somalians now are per capita the largest group of invaders that are entering this country at the moment. What could possibly go wrong?
I know.
What could possibly go wrong? In relation to housing, I think it's important that I mention that the Irish state are determined to take Enoch Burke's family home from the family. They are determined to seize their family home. I've heard, nobody has referenced it yet, but our state are fully intent on prosecuting several members of the Burke family with criminal contempt. Now, that's separate to the contempt that Enoch is in prison for a long term. Criminal contempt upon conviction carries an unlimited fine and a prison sentence. So a judge can fine Mrs. Burke and the other members of the Burke family an unlimited amount of money, which they won't pay, or they won't be able to pay. And if they don't pay the massive fines that are about to be levied upon them, the state can move in then, and they can seize the property to recoup the monies that are, the monies issued by way of fine, by way of fine or fines. The government, a court can impose unlimited fines for criminal contempt in this country. And I believe that the Irish state are intent on seizing the Burke family home. That's my belief.
Well, they've already indicated that at the last hearing, when Enoch Burke was told he had to go back to Mountjoy prison again, the judge was pushing for contempt against 4 members of the family: Enoch plus the mother, Martina plus Isaac plus Amy or Amy. And he also referenced the cars or the vehicles that were used to ferry him to and from that school, talking about getting a quarter out, to seize them. He said, I'm not doing it right now, but I'm looking at it. So I believe, John, yes, that could be a signal. And, to finish this conversation off too, I suppose you could say that would be another sign that even if you have lived in the good old days where you could get on the property ladder and you did own your own house, there's still that chance that the government could come along when you're into your retirement years. And if you set your foot wrong or you speak out against the government, or you take your stand, well, then they can come along by hook or by crook and pull that rug from under your feet too. So I think really, in summary, this whole belief or this whole aspiration of, having your own place to call your own, that you will own and you can do with it as you please, that is being slowly eradicated, and any security that anybody might have felt in the past is being slowly erased. I think that's another aspect of this wicked government.
Yeah, well, my opinion is that I said the greatest threat we face in Ireland, or one of the greatest threats we face in Ireland, is the threat to private property rights. That as Ireland swings further to the left, and that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading in this country. The government will devise methods to seize property. And I referenced in a previous podcast about a lady, let's say I call her Mrs. Murphy. She's living in a house, a 3-bedroom house. Her husband is dead, and the government will decide that if Mrs. Murphy refuses to sell the house or to hand it over to the state so they can house whatever, where they can stick in Muhammad and his 2 wives and 6 children, that they will introduce draconian taxes where Mrs. Murphy will have no option but to sell her house and to move into a little tiny 1-bedroom apartment somewhere. And just getting back to the Burkes for a second, there was one journalist I heard was raising questions about is there somebody funding the Burkes? Who's funding the Burkes? Where are they getting all of this money to live? You know what I mean? There's no they're beginning to wonder, like, are they being funded by some evangelical groups in America? While at the same time, mosques are springing up in Ireland like mushrooms, and there's nobody asking about the sourcing of the funding for these mosques. Where's the money coming from to build these big mosques around this country? There's one in Cavanagh. It's a very impressive looking building. Okay, it's called an Islamic Cultural Centre. All the so-called Islamic cultural centres, they're all mosques. I'll tell you, it cost quite a few euro to construct that building, I can assure you. And they're building a few super mosques around this country that will literally cost millions of euro. Will there be any so-called investigative journalists digging into the source of the funding for these mega structures? I think we all know the answer to that question. Private property rights are under threat in this country. And anybody who can't see that is being very naive.
I think you're right, John.
Very
I,
narrow.
I want to stop it at that. There was a few other things I was going to discuss with you, but I'm not going to. I wanted to focus in on this whole erosion and this collapse of the young person's dream of having their independence and having their own home. I'm not saying people out there aren't still doing it, but it has to be an exceptional circuit. It's an exception rather than the norm now, that you will get onto that ladder and you will get your own place. It's getting tighter and tighter to do it. So if you're listening to this and you're in that position, you've had to up sticks and quit out on that dream or get back home with the parents again. How's it been for you? Do you see any way out of it? Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel at all, or do you think this is just going to keep going from bad to worse? You can leave
Yeah.
me your thoughts and comments below. Have you anything you want to say just in closing?
Yeah, well, we hear a lot about human rights and human rights. We hear a lot about human rights from our traitors government and from our taxpayer-funded, hard-earned taxpayer money-funded NGOs in this country. We hear a lot about human rights. It's a basic human right that an Irish man and an Irish woman should be able to afford a house to live in and to raise their families in. That's a basic human right as far as I'm concerned. Every Irish man and every Irish woman should be able to afford to buy a property to live in and to raise a family in. That's a basic human right as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. And up until recently, it's one that pretty much many people did exercise, but not anymore. So there you have it, folks. Tell me what you think below in regards to that video, in regards to your own personal circumstances, if it applies to you. If you feel like it, leave me a comment below. Cut and paste the link to this video, share it out there. And if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button to the channel, because there's a lot of people watch these videos and they just keep tuning in, which is great. But hit the subscription button. It helps the channel grow, and hit the notification bell also, and you'll be informed as soon as new content is available. So, John, big thanks to you this morning for taking time out of your day to come on and discuss this. Listeners, thank you for listening. I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media for now.